right.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next chapter in the virtual chat series, Keep Learning Strong. My name is Roger Rinker. I'm joined by my partner, Candace McGlenn, and a special guest today that we'll introduce in just a moment. Our goal at hashtag Keep Learning Strong is to promote learning and the professionals that make it happen. And you can follow us through either LinkedIn, Twitter, or through our web address or our web service. So it's Enovation Solutions, hashtag Keep Learning Strong, along with the website there as well. And we ask that as you'll see in today's episode, we are asking leaders within the learning and development space for their opinions, as well as their ideas with regards to how to kind of press forward during these trying times during the COVID and what it's meant for them. And we hope that you will take something from that. And then if there's any interesting items that you would like to share, it provides a forum that you would be able to do that as well with the rest of the learning and development community. We've done enough of these now that I don't want to spend too much time on ourselves. My name is Roger Rinker. I've spent the bulk of my career in the talent management and learning and development space within corporate America, with over 30 years of experience in that space. And Candace, I'll let you do a brief introduction as well.
Yep. And my name is Candace McGlenn, and much like Roger, I spent the majority of my career in talent management and learning and development, some in nonprofit and some for profit.
Great, thank you, Candace. And our very special guest today is Mr. Donald H. Taylor. Donald is chairman of the Learning and Performance Institute, and it's a role that we felt as though Donald would be able to share some great, hopefully, stories and lessons learned over the past few months and an entire lifetime really with us. So we'd like to welcome Donald. And Donald, is there, maybe give us just a brief background with regards to who you are, sir.
Roger, thank you, and Candice. I'm chairman of the Learning Performance Institute, chairman of the Learning Technologies Conference as well. The Institute since 2010, the conference since 2000. That's the biggest conference of its type in Europe and part of the Learning Technologies brand. So I'm involved in 8 different events internationally with that. But I've been in the field of technology since 1981 when I started programming computers, and of training since 1987 when I started as a stand-up trainer teaching English to adults in Istanbul, Turkey. And my current focus is on research, thinking, sharing good ideas, and a combination of creating spaces online or face-to-face where people can have good, meaningful conversations. And on the other hand, trying to increase the standing of and the understanding of the learning and development profession. I want us to be doing a better job and to be understood to be doing a better job.
Great, thank you, Donald. You've certainly spent the majority of your career in this kind of function of learning and development.
Yeah.
When you heard the kind of the phrase "keep learning strong," could you tell us a little bit about what it meant to you and why it's important in your world?
Learning is something that happens inside individuals, and we can't actually affect directly the process of learning. A lot of us tend to assume we can, but what we can do is we can create the circumstances, the environment, we can foster learning and help people learn effectively. So that phrase, keep learning strong, to me means, look, people are going to learn, but let's make sure we put them in the optimal position to do it. And let's help organizations understand what they need to do in order to have that environment in place for people to learn effectively. So it's both a focus on the individual and on the organization.
Yeah, I love that. That's kind of a slant on it that we haven't heard yet, but I think that's very key. Could you also share with us, Donald, kind of how the current speed of change is impacting the L&D profession from your standpoint?
Right at the beginning of this crisis, things have changed and changed very rapidly. And what we've discovered, unsurprisingly, is people are incredibly adaptable. What seemed to be far-fetched or impossible in January had become routine by April. People were doing mass meetings, online, training online, and what have you. I've just completed a week-long conference online that I set up, fostered, and we had 4,000 registrants in many sessions. We had 600 people attending, learning, talking simultaneously online. I mean, I knew that could be done, but it was a leap for a lot of people to understand that it was possible, and it was a success. The other side of this is that not all the change has been even, and for some people it's been very uncomfortable and indeed negatively disruptive. I spent the first part of COVID-19, I put a message out on LinkedIn. If you're being negatively affected by this, please get in contact. I have to say, I spent a lot of time messaging people, in direct phone calls with people who were facing challenges in terms of their employment. That's still the case now. A lot of good people are losing their jobs because there isn't space in their organization to employ them. As you've said, the first thing that goes in a crisis is very often the training budget, and these people have suffered from it. We haven't made the case sufficiently strongly, and that comes back to your theme, that learning is an essential part of an organization's operation. Rather, it's seen as being a disposable item that can be cut back when times get rough, and it undoubtedly isn't. And the organizations that aren't adapting to start delivering training online, but rather are just deciding to lay people off, those organizations will suffer from it in the future, no doubt about that.
Great, thank you, Donald. Can you share any common challenges that you're being approached with by your cohorts or by your network
Sure.
of folks, as you just mentioned?
Sure. I mean, one of the points from the individual point of view is I can't convince my organization that I'm worth employing anymore. I don't mean that in a negative sense. I just mean that organizations are looking at people as a cost item and they're laying people off. It is too late, unfortunately, now probably to do anything about that. But at the beginning of the process, hopefully if you came into it with a sense of good ties internally, a good set of conversations with managers, with leaders that enabled you to have a regular showing of what the value was, then you stood a much better chance of staying employed. Other people haven't been in that position. Other challenges, of course, are how the heck do we get this thing which we were doing face-to-face and put it online? That's happened with a variety of different levels of success with different people. There's a company in the UK, I have no financial interest in them, called Happy. They are an entirely face-to-face operation. They were able, without having prepared for this at all, to shift entirely to going online. And they got a turnover, I think, of £100,000 a month, top line. And they managed, the managing director put out a message saying, hey, we only lost £30,000 our first month. Now that was, actually it's an incredible achievement. And then the next month that loss was reduced. They were actually able to take an entirely face-to-face operation, put it entirely online and make, yes, a loss, but much less than they expected one month, and then reduce that loss the next month. So it is possible to do it, but the trick is not to say, we've got an 8-hour face-to-face course, right? That means we're going to do an 8-hour online course. That's entirely the wrong approach. This is a fantastic opportunity to do things in a new way. And the companies that are adapting well are those which are deciding how they're going to quite deliberately use the online environment for what it's best at, not to try to create a poor man's version of a face-to-face event.
Thank you. I love that kind of that concept, right? Not a poor man's version of a face-to-face conversation. So thank you for that. With that, Donald, I'm going to do the handoff to Candace. Candace, I'll let you take your shot at Donald here.
Great, thank you.
This is a bit like, because Roger, you're in South Carolina. Candice, you're in Houston. It's a bit like the Apollo launch, isn't it? When the rocket gets up and it gets past the tower and you hand over to Houston. So Houston, we're now in touch.
We certainly are, and you're in London, so we're certainly in very, very different places of the world, all three.
Absolutely, and all connected together, and that's the wonderful thing about being online.
Candice. It is, yes.
So Donald, to that point, what is successful distance learning from your standpoint?
First, I want to say I don't believe there is such a thing as distance learning. As I said right at the beginning, learning is something that takes place inside people. Yeah. So all learning takes place over a distance of probably about 8 inches, something like that, at the most. But we know what we mean here. We mean successful delivery, collaboration, the setting up of a learning environment where people can learn. The short answer to this is it's successful if it meets your goals. And I think it sounds trite and it sounds simple, but actually it's pretty important. Too often we go into the creation of a training or a learning program without considering the end goal we want to achieve. We tend to get bogged down very quickly in the minutiae of the delivery. Should we be doing this online, face-to-face? Do we have breakouts? How do we organize it? Successful just means we hit the target. We did what we set out to do in the first place. So for me, the question that comes before this is, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Is it an individual need? Is it an organizational need? A combination of the two? If it is, great. Then we know what success looks like, and then we know if we succeeded. We can also talk, if you like, about what makes distance delivery, distance support of learning likely to fail. And I think we know what that is. In particular, it's having insufficient support for the individual. So we have success when people are given a clear destination, supported on their journey, and that support is both in terms of great materials, but also in terms of their individual personal things they're trying to achieve. We fail when we don't do that. Example, in January, I was starting to learn Spanish face-to-face in a course in London. So I'd go to my local underground station, take the tube across town, do a 2-hour lesson, probably have a drink afterwards and then come back. And that's a big chunk of time in the evening. The company moved that course online. So I'm now on a Wednesday evening spending 2 hours with a cohort of fellow people that I've only met now online, because I stopped the face-to-face course and I joined an entirely online course. I'm on the second level. Don't ask me to speak any Spanish yet, because I'm not by any means fluent. I started from zero. But what they are very good at doing, the reason why I'm doing this with a group of people, is that it gives me that social support during the learning process. So everything else can be good, bad, and different, but without the social bit, you're only going to get the hardcore learners surviving. So what is successful? Distance learning, we hit the target. What makes it most likely to fail, in my opinion, what makes it most likely to fail, in my experience, is that we don't give people sufficient support as individuals.
That's great.
It's a very long answer, sorry.
No, but it's very, I like the take on it and really understanding the outcomes and then what people need to continue to succeed. Process. So can you share any helpful advice that you have for business and L&D leaders?
Yeah. I've been doing quite a lot of sharing of advice. Whether people ask for it or not is another matter, but I've been giving my advice out willy-nilly, concentrating on the L&D leaders to begin with. I think we're going through 3 phases during this period of COVID. There was the initial emergency phase, which I call adapt, which is when we simply have to adapt what we're doing because we have commitments and we just have to get stuff done. And we're trying to do the old things in new ways, more or less cramming them into new delivery mechanisms. Typically, it's an emergency situation. We're having to react fast. We may be doing things imperfectly. In fact, we almost certainly are, but we just have to do it good enough to get stuff done. That's what I call the adapt phase. And I think we're sort of coming out of that. It's currently July, August 2020. We're coming out of that now. At some point in the future, we'll have what I call the advance stage, where we're moving forward. We're doing new things. We have a new way of working, which has reacted to the COVID-19 scare. it's what some people call the new normal. I prefer to call it the new now because it's happening. It doesn't feel very normal. But in that advanced phase in the future, we'd call that, what we're doing there is we are regularly helping people develop and we're maintaining systems there. So between the sort of mad panic of the immediate reaction to COVID-19 and this much more stable state in the future, we have a situation where we have to change things. So we were adapting very quickly. In the future, we're going to be advancing forward. In the middle, we've got what I call the adopt phase, adopting new systems and processes. And it's a transitional phase. And in that bit in the middle, we have to be very considered in our decision making. Unlike the scramble of the adapt phase, we have to slow down and be very clear. What are we trying to achieve? What systems do we need? What processes? And the key thing for me in the adopt phase is that we look very rationally, very calmly at the things that we created in the mad scramble of the adopt phase and say, right, some of those things just are no good for the long term. For example, we had a course. It was a one-day course. We turned that into 6 hours of online face-to-face stuff. We know that isn't going to work. Let's cut it down. Let's do 2 hours of synchronous stuff online, but let's put all the other knowledge acquisition stuff around that in an asynchronous mechanism of delivery. If we don't do that, if we carry on in this middle phase of just taking the baggage we created in the first phase into the future, we're going to end up going forward with a lot of stuff that is suboptimal. We've seen this before. In 2001, 9/11, when the Twin Towers came down, air traffic was pretty much banned in the US. People stopped flying for training. It was a huge boom for the e-learning industry, but the industry wasn't ready. The result was content was produced, which was a slide deck with a click next button on it, and that became e-learning. And it was the default form of e-learning for a pretty long time afterwards. And it had two effects. First, it wasn't very good, and so people didn't learn much. And secondly, it gave e-learning a really bad name. Now, in this phase we're in right now, we have to not do that. We have to look at what we've done in the short term, throw out the bad, reinvent, think very calmly and rationally about what we want to get to in the future, and start focusing on delivering that. And that's only one thing we have to do, but it's the most important thing. The other thing we have to do is start having conversations with our business leaders. And the conversations have to be not around, oh, we can do something online, or we can do something synchronously or asynchronously. They don't care. They have to be what I call data conversations. Conversations about the business using the common language of the business, which is data, and describing the issues that managers and leaders have got in terms that they can understand and which present a solution to them. So, oh, you've got a problem with increased support calls or with delays. Right, well, looking at this part of it, we can help you with that part with the training program we've got. Let's sit down and discuss that. We need to have those conversations and win support and profile manager by manager in organizations. This is the moment to shift the perception of learning within organizations from being transactional, delivering things, to being strategic, helping people reach their strategic goals, those managers. So that's all about L&D leaders. I think if I was going to give any advice to the business leaders, I'd say listen out for people who are coming to you talking about what they can do for you. And if they don't have that conversation, ask them. Don't ask them for training courses. Ask them, what are you doing to help me meet my goals? Here they are. Tell me how you're going to meet them, and force the conversation into one based on performance rather than a conversation based on delivery of training.
That's great, Donald. Thank you for that answer. I think it really helps, especially your look at adapting, adopting, and advancing really helps L&D professionals with understanding where we are and what needs to happen now and in the future.
I've been talking about people quite a lot with this, and it's one of those things where you talk to people and they go, oh yeah, and you can see it's working.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Great.
I think it's a useful model for people.
Absolutely. So what are the most important skills you feel need to be cultivated in the workforce today?
There's a simple answer to that. whatever the business needs. So there is no generic solution, absolutely no generic solution to this. And if anybody says it must be creativity, it must be innovation, well, maybe it is, but maybe it's something else. Maybe the skills your people need is how to do an Excel pivot table, something really fundamental and tactical. Maybe the skills your people need is sales. And if somebody comes in from the outside saying that they know what skills your organization needs, I would be very suspicious of them. And look, I've sat on stage at the Learning Technologies Conference for 20 years watching people deliver keynotes, and I'm increasingly wary of anybody who claims to have the answer about the future for anything, including skills. So I would say to them, I don't know. And if you say you know, I don't think I trust you. The only answer to this question is, what did the managers say? If the managers say they need the skills, maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong, but at least sit down and have a good conversation, looking at the behaviors you require, and maybe that'll get you to the answer. So the answer to this one is, ask the managers.
Right. Very different answer to that question, I can say. Thank you, Donald. And what new insights or wisdom have you gained from this year?
I have learned that I'm very lucky. There's no question about that. And for various reasons, my circumstances have enabled me to adjust to this position of COVID-19 very easily. I work at home anyway. My wife's parents are no longer with us. My children have just left, one's just left high school, one's just left university. So we're in a position whereby as a family, we're not affected. And actually, you know what? Being grateful for that is something that I'm never, I think, ever going to forget. I think there are some people who really suffered during this period. I'm never going to forget that. I was very lucky during this time. And the other thing I'd say is, when your world is restricted and your horizons are restricted, and all you can do is walk out of the house, as has happened to us in London, when you can, when lockdown is lifted, when all you can do is walk out of the house and your horizon is limited to maybe half a mile around your house, actually, there are great things there. So I've learned to be grateful for what I've got around me this year.
Yeah. Nice. And final words, how do you plan to keep learning strong?
I've been trying to get people to improve their game in learning and development for about 30 years. For me, my mission in the next 6 months to 12 months is to use this phrase about keeping learning strong, is to persuade individuals who are working in learning development and those internally who buy its services. I want to persuade those people, both of them, to understand that learning is a core strategic goal, a core function of a business, rather than being something ancillary. And we're seeing that happen. We're seeing great practitioners doing really good work. And I find that exciting. So what I can do to support that is give those people a platform and enable them to speak. And my big thing is, and I was on the phone this morning, Zoom. I was on Zoom this morning with Sydney Savion, who is the Texan head of learning for Air New Zealand. So it's her evening, it's my morning, and she's inspirational. And there are so many inspirational people out there. And I want to give those people a platform where people in the audience, whether it's virtual or physical, can say, yes, I get it. I get what she's saying. That's the sort of stuff I need to do. But plus, I can now see what it's like to be like that. I've been operating tactically, but I can hear and I can see the message. I want to be like Sydney or Simon or Roger or Leslie or whoever. I want to be like that person. I want to give people the space to have both information and inspiration so they feel equipped to do this in their organizations. I do believe we're seeing a shift in the way learning and development is perceived in some organizations, and provided we can nurture that and spread that to other organizations, I think actually learning's got every chance of keeping strong well into the future.
Yes, I agree with that. That's great, Donald. And so this has been a really insightful interview. I know the audience that will be tuning into this this video or this podcast, they will definitely get a lot from it. So we want to thank you for taking the time to do that. And Donald, if you could tell the audience how they could find you.
Thank you. Sure, they can get hold of me at donaldhtaylor.co.uk. I'm also doing a lot of work at the moment with helping people with online delivery. So if your thing is trying to work out how you deliver a webinar or do something via one of these various tools we've got right now online, webinarmaster.com is another place you can find me. But you know what? You can always find me on LinkedIn. If you want to say, Don, I've got a question about that thing, just search for Donald H. Taylor. You can't escape me. I'm everywhere. Just get me up on LinkedIn and let's have a conversation.
That's great. Thank you, Donald.
My
Roger,
pleasure.
any final words?
No, I too believe this has been a very insightful bit of time that we've spent together here. And I just want to personally thank Donald for that, and hope that many of you do take the opportunity to reach out to him.
Yep. And as Roger said earlier, please feel free to find us on LinkedIn, follow us on Twitter, and you can find our website to find additional interviews at www.innovationsolutions.com/keeplearningstrong. Thank you.
Great. Cheers, everyone.
Hopefully that was worthwhile, guys.
It was great.